Now, moving on to our first session filled with panelists and, of course, a wonderful moderator. We're very, very excited. And we're very excited to obviously share the views that will be shared here. Talking about the future of intelligent banking in Pakistan. The moderator, who we're going to invite on stage, will be the one announcing his panelists and letting you know who those wonderful people are that will be joining him on stage. In this exclusive panel discussion, leading CEOs will share their vision for the future of Pakistan's banking industry. The conversation will explore how leaders are reimagining business models, driving financial inclusion, navigating regulatory and economic challenges, and forging strategic partnerships to unlock new opportunities. So please welcome the moderator for this session, the COO of Systems Limited, Asif Akram, to join us on stage, please.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good morning still. I think some of these sessions have been really enlightening. Now we'll have our first panel with the esteemed CEOs of the banks. Let me first invite Nasir Salim, CEO of HPL. Nasir, thank you. Hamayun, CEO of Mashreq. And Amir, please come to the stage, the Deputy CEO of Meezan. So we're going to have a conversation about how the banking is moving from legacy traditional banking to intelligent banking. The last year, I had a very similar panel, and many of you were here last year as well. I had a very similar panel in which we talked about the impact of AI. And I started that panel by talking about one line, with every responsibility, every power comes huge responsibility, which is the Spider-Man starting point. Firstly, Nasir, congratulations. Really, really well done from a transformation perspective. We know that HPL has gone live with Temenos. So congratulations to the whole HPL team. A transformation in progress. The first journey started. So congratulations. Hamayun, congratulations for launching Mashreq. You just told me you have 10,000 customers. So we all have to try the Mashreq Digital now. And great achievement, a long journey with the launch. And Amir, I just keep reading the Sharia compliance in the biggest Islamic bank and so many awards Meezan gets. So congratulations to you and your whole team. The digital transformation in banks is like Mission Impossible. So I hope all of you have seen the Mission Impossible movie. I'm not going to play the music because I was not allowed to, but I would have. You start off with all these legacy applications. We're talking about AI, we're talking about transformation. We start off all these legacy applications that are being converted. And while the mission is continuing, the regulator comes, and I can speak now because the governor is just left. The regulator comes and changes the mission a little bit. So the mission changes in the middle, and the journey continues. And then you have the IT folks, a lot of CIOs and CTIOs in this room, hanging upside down from the ceilings. Imagine they and their teams trying to fix things on the run because the mission has changed. The only problem is that Tom Cruise has an opportunity to say cut and redo, but in banking, we don't get that opportunity. We got to have live customers. So every mission of change that the banks take, every mission of change comes to an end. And it's not end till it's successful, because we got to make our customers successful. So that's the anecdote I thought I'll talk about today, is the Mission Impossible, which each of you and all of you are achieving. So I just want to give everybody a huge round of applause. It's not technology. This is Mission Impossible that the banks are achieving in Pakistan, and they're doing very well with that. So coming to our topic today, which is the future of intelligent banking, there'll be three sections I will cover, and I'll be very precise. First is the vision and strategy. How are the banks doing from a vision and strategy perspective? The second is the customer experience part. And then the third section is the leadership. We all talked about talent. McKinsey talked about it. Asif talked about it. Everybody talked about it. So I want to conclude on that. So Nasir, I will start with you. So from a strategy and vision perspective, how does the bank sees economic growth, innovation, sustainability with all this tech and fusion happening and the Mission Impossible example that I've given, how does HPL see that for their customers? I'll then go to Meezan, and usually I'll come last to Hamayun because I would want a different digital view. I'm hoping he can give me that a little bit differently. So, Nasir.
So thank you so much. I think it's been an interesting journey so far, and it is a bit like changing, the engine for an aeroplane which is flying. So it's a little bit like Mission Impossible. I think there's a couple of things. I always believe that you need to have a vision which is short term and which is simultaneously long term. So the strategy that we have is today there's a certain tech stack, and we have done very well in terms of consciously deciding to go what would be similar to what DBS did, that they started with the customer experience and started the digitization journey there. So really, in terms of reaching customers, today HPL has about 40 million customers in total, which is about 2.5 to 3 times, the rest of, the next competitor bank. And that has only been possible because of what we've done in the mobile app. 8 years ago, we had less than 100,000, people on the app. Today, we've got 4 million on the app and growing. The second, which is about 9 million of our customer base, is actually on wallets. So the Connect application, which is available at 50,000 Kiryana stores, as well as cash management and other components, which have now been added as value additions to support commercial, SME sector and certain corporates. So that has really helped us. Cash management and the salary processing. On cash management, we are the market leaders, as we are in SME and agri. So really, it is about while we get the tech stack ready and while we take that forward, and as you rightly said, we're very proud that we've got our first 3 pilot branches up. By end of November, Faisal is assuring me, now that he's got the award, he'll probably bring it a week ahead. But before November ends, 7 more branches. And next year is a lot of heavy lifting over there. So really, it's two-pronged. How do we create impact? Because banking is all about the customers. It's all about people. So whether it is our staff or whether it is the customers, and how do we create that impact?
Yeah.
I think that's what drives us through the volatility of the country's economic situation. And the financials, kind of show that in terms of, the best ever year in 2024, as well as, the best 9 months that we've had in terms of the profitable growth. So each and every segment, you have to look at it very, very, microscopically in order to get value. But the levers are there, and the levers are there for everyone. But as we saw from some of the keynote speakers, the world is changing. And if we are not investing, so it's not just the core application, we're also doing switches, we're also doing, the middleware upgrades. It is a whole getting the tech stack ready for the future. We have started, and I was very proud, I'm a little, scratching my head now, but we have started some pilots in terms of AI, in terms of robotics, as well as now moving on to piloting. But fundamentally, there has to be that sea change in terms of how we actually imagine operations. It has to be by the steps, not by the flows. And
Agreed.
that's the only way we're going to have an end-to-end AI-enabled automated system. I know I've ran over time.
No, that's okay. That's perfect. Amir, can I ask you the same question? Maybe you'll have to pass the mic to Amir. Oh, he's got one. So Amir, how do you see the strategy? How do you see the sustainable economic growth through this innovation for Meezan? And what are you guys thinking about this now?
I think building on what Nasir said, economic growth is definitely, there should be an economic value in every transaction we do. And I see any technology is an enabler for the well-being of the society. And economics is one of the piece of the social well-being. So what is happening with all these technologies, be it electricity followed by, for example, computing, World Wide Web, and now AI. And we have to understand that AI is not a new terminology. It gained traction in 1956, but in the absence of huge amount of data sets and processing power, we were unable to see its impact. We have seen closed loop systems which were intelligent. They were using AI models, machine learning models earlier. But this became a more trending theme post ChatGPT, which was primarily natural language processing. So every normal human being who was, I said the word normal because somebody who does not understand IT is normal to me. So every normal human being started understanding technology post natural language processing. Earlier, all these programming languages were actually what they were shorthand writing of English. So we have to learn that shorthand every time. If we go to learn, say, initially we learned C, then we learned Java, and then we learned Python. They were all shorthands of English language. Now, you don't need to learn those shorthands. You can simply use the natural language which you speak with your generative AI models. And then these generative AI models, which actually went commercialized in November 22 onwards, became more and more powerful, but still they do some hallucination. So as a bank, we have to be keep in mind that we are an organization where people trust their savings. So there are few things which a human being loves really. One is own life. The second one is money. So somebody is entrusting money to an institution, he does not want that institution to hallucinate while giving an answer. So when we are scaling and adapting these technology for the economic well-being of the customers who live in our society, we have to be responsible as well. We have to be ethical as well. But I think now it's a time scaling is really easy because now on the basis, on the backbone of generative AI, which is like a brain, agentic AI is being developed. In agentic AI, I would say it's being developed faster only during last 12 months or maybe last 18 months when generative AI become more and more powerful. So now agentic AI, and in the presence of thanks to the earlier developed APIs concept, it's much more easy to integrate agentic AI with our system. So I think now it's time to scale. Every bank, every organization is eyeing on it, and there is a massive economic value in it. And I feel that it is it's a strength to human being. It's a resource for human being. It makes human race much more powerful. It's not a replacement of human beings. It is being wrongly construed that is going to replace it. It will make us much more powerful as it made us, as the electricity made us much more powerful, as telecommunication made it much more powerful, as even the computers and these microprocessors made us much more powerful. It's going to make every single organization, including banks, much more powerful. And we will accelerate the rate because in technology, in economics, technology is actually an enabler which accelerates the pace of economic growth. So it will accelerate the pace of economic growth and development and also make it much more sustainable because then we'll be needing lesser resources to grow. So this is my perspective on AI and technology, and we have to embrace it. We have to adapt it. And I believe for normal human beings now, it is much more easier to adopt because it is using NLP now.
Great. So as Nasir said, it's going to go across the organization. You talked about the adoption of AI. We are seeing AI like an industry industrial revolution. It's a man or a human being and AI versus there's, I think you talked about the same thing. It's not just a bubble. Now, the mission impossible for you, which we've just achieved, mashallah, Hamayun, the second digital bank to launch, and you're doing that. So I wanted a view from you on this, because you're just starting this journey. Mashreq is a cross-border bank, digital, and how are you seeing this economic sustainable innovation growth for Mashreq? It has to be the different perspective from more of traditional banks which are moving there.
First of all, thank you for disclosing my number of customers. Now that it is public, what we have achieved in the last 4 weeks, we just heard from the Governor Saab that the 89% of the transactions are now digital, which is 2.1 billion transaction in last quarter out of 2.4 billion transactions. But the 75% of the transactions are still paper-based. And looking at this, we thought that the transformation, adoption to digital in Pakistan will happen gradually over 8 to 10 years. That was our assessment coming into this market. But looking at the phenomenal uptake that we have observed in the last very, very early days, 4 weeks, let me tell you how, as a bank globally, we are looking at what is happening on the innovation, regulatory, economic front. So the first thing that we are doing is innovation, focusing on 2 parts. The first one is open finance, and the second one is banking as a service. We clearly understand as a bank, we will not be able to do everything ourselves, and already there are embedded services that third parties or fintechs are providing, and we are trying to be there as much as possible. With Central Bank of UAE, we are the first one to launch open finance this year. So that's the innovation. The second focus area for Mashreq is resilience. How do we make sure that as a systemic bank, we are able to deliver on the trust, availability, and the security that is demanded from us? The third focus area globally for us is efficiency. With the declining interest rates, how do we make sure that the profitability and our ability to service customers still remains or grows? So the cost to income ratio of 29% last year is what we would continue to strive, keep it even better this year and going forward. The fourth part is we are going to disrupt ourselves like we did in last 10 years by having a revenue of $1.6 billion in 2017 and closing 2024 with $3.6 billion in revenue.
Yeah.
How do we do this in next 5 years versus the last 10 years that we have seen us as a bank? However, in Pakistan, while we are inheriting all of this through our global operating model, there are 4 things that I'm and my team are focusing on. First thing is to make sure that the regulatory compliance is top-notch.
Okay.
We have seen new players coming in, and with the excitement of digital, losing track on staying compliant, and then they later had to, fix themselves. The second thing that we're trying to do is to make sure that the fundamentals are strong. The fundamental of us being a bank which is available 24/7. The fundamental of our agile operating model. In last 4 weeks, we have seen so much from our customers' feedback that we see that the ability to go back in the market with the changes that are demanded still needs a lot more agility
Absolutely.
that we have been boasting about. And the third thing is, with State Bank's RAS, National Faster Payments Platform, if we have done 9 billion transactions in last 12 months, and if we compare a similar country, my favorite, Brazil, that country did 75 billion transactions in last 6 months.
So the
And then
opportunity size is huge.
the 9 billion versus 140 billion transaction, no comparison whatsoever. So how do we embed ISO 20022 in our every transaction interaction with the customer is something that is fundamental to us. The third thing that we are trying to do is to make sure that the global award-winning platforms that we have inherited, Neo for the individual customer, NeoBiz for the business customers, NeoNext for the youth, and NeoCorp for the corporate customers. How do we localize all of those platforms to make sure that the people, while getting the international flavor, still feel very relevant while using the digital banking services of Mashreq? And the fourth focus, which is very close to my heart, is how do we offer banking to overseas Pakistanis while they are outside Pakistan and trying to remit money or do digital banking? That is still, I know we've done very well with Roshan Digital. However, still there is huge gap that we must cover.
Great. I think the advent of Mashreq creates this new era of digital banking in Pakistan, which is great and a new perspective. My next area is customer, and Nasir, I'll start with you. We just heard from Hamayun the digital versus the legacy bank tradition. How is HPL looking at two things? Customer engagement from a digital versus a traditional bank, and then anticipating what the customers are looking for as the next thing. So how's that ethos being built? Because you're also a wide digital bank, and you said you're highest in the cash payments, et cetera, et cetera. So how's HPL seeing that journey from a customer experience perspective? Because we all talk about in this intelligent banking, customer experience is hugely important.
So
I think that mic is working.
thank you. I think the first thing is, what is the bank's philosophy? And it has always been about the customer. So we've talked about the technology. Well, what is that technology for? It's for people, it's for our employees, and more importantly, it's for the customer experience. The challenge with digital becomes it's something which is impersonal. So if you're on a mobile app, or if you're at a Connect store, you're dealing with either a system or you're dealing with a Kiryana store where there is a average shopkeeper there. And I think for the mobile app, it's really been about the feature set, and it's also been about the UI, UX. It has to be intuitive, it has to make sense, and the mobile app has to follow a certain theme that people get familiar with. So, I mean, the example is if you look at an Android user of a mobile phone versus an iPhone, Android probably has much more capability, much more feature set, but iPhone is much more customer friendly. And even though there's a premium price, iPhones still have that place. So I think that's where we've gone. The app that we have is award-winning, and the feature set there is extremely rich with more services, more learnings. And it's really important to listen to what our customers want. So we did some competitive analysis. Some of them actually want a simpler app. Ours is so feature-rich. At times it becomes, if you have 3-4 basic transactions to do, you're looking for something simpler. So we're now looking at where there is a certain level of hyper-personalization where you can configure your app. So the next release is going to be a configurable app. You decide, what feature sets you want. For the segments, we'll, pre-present a certain feature set, and they can self-add if they want out of that. So I think it's the little tweaks based on the customer feedback that are important. On the Connect side and the Kiryana store, you're not going to get those 50,000 to behave that way that you want it to. And therefore, it is very, very simple. You go there, you do your biometric, you take your cash. So we've kept it very, very simple. We're now looking at adding richer features and a segment in the Kiryana store where there is going to be more hand-holding and taking that forward. So whatever we do, whether it's digitally, whether it's AI-enabled, whether it is through traditional banking methods, but that customer piece and that feedback that you take it in and you embed it into your processes, into your training, into your people, continues to be a critical element there. On the branch side, clearly is where, the more information about the customer that you can present to the individual dealing with the customer, it makes it a better experience. So that's another primary focus with 1,650 branches. And incidentally, one curious fact, the number of bank branches that have been added in 2023, 24, and now in 25, State Bank's comment is they've never seen, in the recent history, that many branches being added. So while we're going on this digital journey, there continues to be that 8.5%, 10 trillion that is currency in circulation, 2 to 3 times higher than what India has, which would be a comparable, sort of a country from that perspective. So clearly, until we address some of the leakages in terms of how the revenue collection in FBR and other is done, until we increase the documented sector more, and that I think is where digital Pakistan, the whole digitization piece comes in and is critical for Pakistan and the economy. And I think that's another focus which we'll see very quickly. But for now, they will, even with the best consistency and effort, I see this being a phygital world as you had described it earlier, right? And it will be hybrid. And that is something we need to keep in mind. But when the disruption comes, that disruption is going to be brutal. It's going to be fast. And I agree with what Hamayun said, that disruption, the scale, and at that time, all banks that are ready to pivot with it. And I think we talked about some people are looking at AI and they're doing these pilots,
Yes.
right? So unless we fundamentally transform during this window of opportunity, my firm belief is that if I look 10 years, and 10 years I don't have a crystal ball, but I know this for a fact, that the banks and the banking industry that will not be ready for this inflection point and this disruption will fade away. And it is the ones who are ready and who have built enough financial strength through the old-fashioned way in this limited window of opportunity that they would be in a position to really
Agreed.
take it to the next level.
Completely agreed. I think you're talking about the scale aspect, the hybrid part of it. I think that is very important while we're looking at customer experience, what the is doing and what. So, Amir, your view before I go to Hamayun. I think we'll use the same mic just to be just to make sure that it's working. From a Meezan perspective, two parts of this question. How are you seeing the customer experience from a traditional to digital? And then how are you using data to predict what the customers are wanting in the future from you?
So let me try to be more operational here rather than philosophical. So although we have been doing a number of use cases and pilots and proof of concepts, but few things which we have been able to move into production. The first one is there is a agent sitting on Meezan Bank's website. We call it Meezan GPT, and this is based on an LLM model. And you go and interact as a customer with that agent and ask any question in natural language. And the agent will respond to you in natural language, just like your
Very good.
LLM
Excellent.
models, other LLM models, be it Gemini or Copilot. So this is live, this is in production. It handles roughly 4,000 queries every day at this point in time. The second thing which we have done, that we have trained the similar LLM model because we have to take care of hallucination in that. So we had to train that model again for our employees. And now inside Meezan Bank, we have thousands of our own internal policy documents which have been moved into that model. And now the model is trained. And if a person inside Meezan Bank has a query regarding any HR policy or procedure and other operational policy and procedure, he or she can go and just interact it like a colleague. It's like an HR colleague or an operations colleague, interact with him or her and respond. So this is also in production. Then one more thing which we are trying to do on the compliance side, and this is in, I would say, pre-production stage. So there was a requirement that you have to compile all the SBP circulars and have to check compliance. So all these circulars have been uploaded into the same model. It is being trained. And now compliance function. Now, earlier people have to go to the compliance function to ask whether I can do this or I can't do this. Now it's that agent which is going to advise. So these are a few things which have already been done. Plus the power of ICR. Earlier we used to have OCR, now it's intelligent. The power of ICR has enabled us to use the information coming in documentary form to process it. Plus the data which is sitting in our system. So one model which the data science team has developed is the next best offer or the next best action. And we call it next best offer. And it is in production. So the relevant RM knows, based on that model and the data it has processed, what is the next best product I have to offer to this customer.
Okay.
And on the basis of that, the RM offers that product to the customer and with a significant success. So this is in production. Then there is another model which is in production, which is predicting the level of cash on a day-to-day basis we have to maintain inside our ATM machines. So it considers all those patterns of peaks and troughs, and on the basis of that, we replenish our ATM machines during holidays, during Eid, during normal days, and it is doing a great job for us. And there are so many others which are in pipeline. So these are 4 or 5 which I've shared, which have been operationalized and are now in production.
Excellent. Well done. I think this is great insight, and I think you are already adopting it and showing the way how AI agents can support Meezan. So thank you for sharing that. Hamayun, for you, there's no other option. There's only digital. We don't have a branch, at least that's what I. So I think yours is a natural question. How's the organizational DNA working through it? Same question, but it'll be very good to hear your view.
You talked about 2 things, engagement and data.
Yeah.
Let me actually start by sharing a recent interaction with a friend of mine. He's one of the CEOs of a bank. He said, "यार मैं अपने स्टाफ से नाराज हो रहा था कि मेरी बेटी मेरे बैंक में अकाउंट क्यों नहीं खोल रही?"
अच्छा.
मेरी बेटी ने मुझे कहा कि मैंने सादा पे का अकाउंट खोला है, आप भी खोलें. And as a similar example, a CFO at a bank, he said that we have a family circle on Nea Pay. So the entire family, kids and wife and the CFO himself working for another bank has has an alternate to the, and bank does have a decent digital banking experience. But the point I'm trying to make around engagement, we have 67, 70 million social media customers in Pakistan today. There are 4 billion interactions, or digitally we call it impressions, that these customers do every day. 1.2 trillion impressions every year. This is the level of engagement of whoever these 70 million customers are today.
Today.
Right? Now let me draw an analogy with, again, New Bank in Brazil. They have doubled their customer base in 1 year. 80% of their customers actually came from word of mouth. They have this philosophy based on net promoter score, and they engage customers where their customers engage other customers. So this bank has 60% of the entire 108 million customer base as the primary bank account holder. And 83% of their customers are actually 30-day active customers. So this engagement in digital without having a branch is a science of its own. And again, to help you understand the science behind this, let me ask a question from all of you guys. How many of you guys know Chris Xu?
I do.
How many of you know Chris Xu? None. This guy has worth $6 billion today. He built a company worth $100 billion. This company is called Shein. How many of you guys know about Shein? There you go. Chris Xu is the founder of Shein. And this guy, or the company Shein, has actually gave run of its life to Zara. So Zara is fast fashion. Shein is real-time fast fashion. Okay. Chris Xu was actually a search engine optimization and digital marketing expert. The model, the way Shein works, is that they continuously look at the search behavior across the globe of what people are trying to buy in terms of clothing and wearables.
Yeah.
Looking at this, they then look at the pattern and the kind of clothing people prefer. Looking at that, they then, using artificial intelligence, design new clothes and the patterns that they sort of own. And then the model of Shein is that the design to actually manufacturing to actually delivery is between 3 to 7 days. The average item value for Zara is $40 to $100 versus Shein is $10 to $20. This company's revenue is $60 billion this year, and Zara's is $28 billion this year.
So you're challenging right now.
What I'm trying to share is that there is this opportunity that exists in the market. The entire banking industry is actually creating customers for digital banks.
Yeah.
And that's the opportunity that exists for the banking industry and not just digital banks alone.
Yeah.
We just bring that DNA and the operating model where we have to think non-brick and mortar. We have to think the only way we can engage customer is by not meeting the customer. So
Excellent.
that reverses the entire model while the banking remains the same under the hood.
Excellent. So Mashreq, being the Shein of industry right now and moving, great analogy, and thank you for sharing. We'll just finish in 2-3 minutes. I have the last question, and Nasir, I've been engaged with your team very regularly. This is about talent and cultural change around innovation and AI, and embracing that. From two things, from a 0 to 10 scale, how do you see that journey moving? It could be in a directional from a HPL. Because you have a different scale, branches, cash, all of that from a team perspective. And do you see in the near future having a chief AI officer who runs across the business to do that? So how do you see that?
So I think upskilling and reskilling has been talked about, and that is important. When I look at 8 years ago, I joined HPL in December of 2017. So when I look at it then and I look at it now, there's been a huge change. When I look at what lies ahead, I think we're still looking at a humongous change.
Yeah.
So talent, I think the fight for talent the availability of talent, retention of talent is going to be not just a banking industry challenge, it is really going to remain a country challenge until we reach. I mean, if you look at it, the neighboring country, at one point in time, many of their tech people went out because there was greener pastures in the US and in other places. And then it reached a stage where people actually wanted to come back to home country because there were opportunities there. So I think our challenge remains very clear as a banking industry and tech industry that we need to upskill, reskill, and actually induct fresh people and find ways and means to improve retention, because this can be a large stumbling block. For example, we've talked throughout in this session about cybersecurity. My question is, do we have enough cybersecurity experts in this country?
We don't.
So I think that challenge is going to remain, and anyone who thinks that we have enough, I think are going to be in a bit of a pickle.
Great. Amir, to you. How's the cultural change? Because I can see that you have agents, you're talking about a lot of things. So how's that cultural change coming along? And the concept of chief AI officer.
So I'm not too much sold about the concept of chief AI officer, but what I'm sold about is that to motivate your entire workforce to use these generative AI tools. And they will teach them everything without we investing tons of money in training them, just motivating them, telling them how to do prompt engineering. They will learn everything. And then bring an environment inside a bank where most of our staff has access to these tools within our environment, so they are able to automate, digitalize, transform their function, rather than having one person with a title of chief data officer, of chief AI officer responsible for doing that. Transform the culture of the entire organization. Earlier, it was relatively difficult. Let me give you an example. I learned coding on certain languages, but now I also learned data science or certain tools. But when I was doing my PhD, I was struggling with some errors in my data set. And I was not conversant with pandas in Python. I have some basic idea. But fixing those errors was an expert level stuff. And you know who did that for me? ChatGPT. So I went to ChatGPT, I uploaded my data set, I told them I have an issue with variance inflation factor. Help me fix it. Help me fix it. The multicollinearity in my data. And I said, do it in Python and identify me those variables where there are problems, and identify me those patches in my data set where I have problems. And it was helping me. Everything, it was writing all the codes in Python, and it was producing the output. Definitely, I had that understanding to interpret those outputs. Now, you can imagine that an ordinary person earlier, a normal person earlier, it was how hard it was for him or her to do coding in Python or learn coding in Python. But now, any person sitting in my bank, if I just teach him in prompt engineering, he will be able to do all these stuff. So I think it's much more easier, it's much more faster. It is just about giving them the confidence to our staff and giving them little bit of training, much lesser than it used to be earlier. We used to spend 4 years in a IT school to get an IT degree. I think now you can achieve everything in 3 months to 6 months with this NLP which is live, which is working. You can do anything and everything. I think we will not be needing even coders anymore. So we will be doing the coding for the new normal people will be doing all the coding for the banks going forward.
In the bank right now from
yes,
people
yes,
are
because what we have done, and credit those to one of our colleagues who have created a group of 2 ICs. There are 60 odd individuals We have trained them in prompt
Excellent.
engineering.
Excellent.
And they are running their projects. So a lot of these projects, which are you mentioned, was done by employees, not by the AI department or the data science department.
Okay.
They help them. Definitely AI and data science and IT help them do that, but it is being done by those individuals who does not have a technology background.
Okay. Hamayun, you have no choice. So how is that culture coming along in Mashreq right now?
Look, from a cultural standpoint, two things I'd like to say. One, leadership must embrace artificial intelligence, the new ways of working, whatever is happening around us. The leadership has to be on top of this. The role of chief AI is important. Do you want to give it to one person, or
Absolutely.
do you want somebody in the leadership to take ownership? That is key. The second thing is, all the enterprises we see are investing in upskilling their employees. But it is employees who have to do the hard work. We can't spoon feed artificial intelligence to our staff. And that's where the competitive culture within the enterprise, where other employees who are sort of left behind feel and fear that if they do not invest in themselves, they will actually not be part of the enterprise going forward.
Absolutely. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. We started off with the Mission Impossible kind of anecdote, and I can see that, with where we are with the banking industry, it's very clear that reimagining is happening every day. It's very clear that we have a hybrid that's going to go on. We have a Xi'an on the blocks to challenge us. But I'll just repeat that digital transformation in banking is mission impossible. You have legacy systems, you have agents, you have the regulator changing things in the middle of the mission, you have IT going around and fixing things, but now it needs to all come together to get this business done. I heard the scale answers, we heard innovation and scale from you also, Amir, and then the digital answers. I hope this was conducive for everybody. I thank three of you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here.